craving for more. Friends are calling, trades are on fire. Rookies falling, championship desire. Fantasy football fever, chasing the dream. Top of the leaderboard, we're the winning team.
Welcome to this week's Drops episode of the Fantasy Football Healers program. It's time to cut through the noise and make those tough roster decisions. We're diving into the players you need to drop to keep your team lean and mean for the playoff push. From underperforming stars to roster-clogging benchwarmers, we've got the insights to help you make the right moves. Let's get to it. So we are getting to that time of the season where you've got to make the tough cuts. And this episode is all about the guys that you should be either stashing or getting the go-ahead to say you can drop them. I'm going to use playerprofiler.com, and I'm going to share my screen. And basically, it's going to show, if you go to Player Profiler, there's a depth charts button, and you can click through each and every team in the NFL. It has it divided into the AFC and the NFC. We do have some news and notes, and as we go along through the depth charts, we will break down some of those news as we go along. So why don't we just start from the top? We'll start with the AFC with the Buffalo Bills. We're clicking on Buffalo Bills, and we've got the quarterbacks here. And so obviously, we're going to be keeping and holding on to Josh Allen. He's fantastic. If you're in Superflex, Mitch Trubisky is speculative as far as stashing, but you do have the go-ahead. If you need to make that tough roster cut, you can cut Mitch Trubisky. My understanding, there is actually a battle for the QB2 position with Mr. Mike White that's also listed on the team. And so there really isn't a definitive QB2 yet for the Buffalo Bills. So if you do need to make those tough cuts, Mitch Trubisky is one of those players. As we come down, we're going into the running backs. Got James Cook, obviously the RB1, but he's also holding in right now, and he wants to get paid. He's trying to get paid before his deal with the Buffalo Bills is up. My understanding is he is not practicing at this time, which leaves Ty Johnson and Ray Davis as the two running backs that you probably want to hold on to right now, with Ray Davis probably having the more upside. Although we've seen Ty Johnson in spots, and he's been with the Buffalo Bills, actually flourish a bit with the Buffalo Bills as the pass-catching running back. So in those PPR leagues, Ty Johnson actually may be a guy you want to hold on to. I did see him dropped recently in our Wizarding World, as people are trying to get younger and make up those waiver wires after having the rookie draft. In the Wizarding World, we always draft on Harry Potter's birthday, which is July 31st. When Colton is back, we will definitely break down the Wizarding World draft, the rookie draft. So you'll not only have some of the early takes on the rookies back in April and May, but now we'll have something a little bit more updated as we lead into the NFL season. Some more news with the Buffalo Bills is that Khalil Shakir, he has injured his foot, and he's going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, which basically here steps in Keon Coleman, who is a guy that I really wasn't into last year, but he had a wrist injury that was about early in the season and just didn't look quite right. Now he has opportunity knocking on the door. Keon Coleman is a guy that you probably want to go out and get. You may be able to get him fairly cheap right now, as the person that ended up drafting him, it might be a bit down on him. So Keon Coleman for the Buffalo Bills is on the rise. Josh Palmer is a free agent that was picked up by the Bills. He's just a guy, but, does opportunity knock on his door? And I would say I'm less interested in Josh Palmer, as I feel like he and Keon Coleman have similar roles. So who's the guy that's going to fill in if Khalil Shakir isn't available for the first week or two? And my answer is Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore. And what I like about the playerprofiler.com is you can see the types of wide receivers that each of the teams have. And so you can see under Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer, they're both listed as split end, while Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Elijah Moore are both listed as flanker. And if you watch the NFL and you've seen these players, you'll know that all three of these guys are very dynamic and they can play at all ends of the field. They can play in the slot. They can play out wide. They can do a runaround. They're very athletic wide receivers. And so Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore make a lot of sense to me. My concern is you get to Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Elijah Moore, and most teams only hold on to about 5 to 6 wide receivers. And so that's probably going to be their depth chart. If you still somehow are holding on to Laviska Shenault, yes, there's been some rumors that he's starting to look healthy again. You can drop him. He is not a guy worth holding on to. But if you do have Curtis Samuel, you do have Elijah Moore, this is probably the time that you do want to hold on to him. If you can flip them, you can definitely go on and do so. As you know, are they going to be the wide receiver 1? Are they going to be the wide receiver 2? But in PPR, they're probably guys I want to hold on to. And then finally, we go down to the tight end position. If you still are holding on to Dawson Knox and you're trying to make that tough decision, you can probably drop Dawson Knox. If you're in a 2 tight end league or a tight end premium, he might still be worth stashing as he's getting closer to the end of his contract. And Dalton Kincaid, he's that move tight end with Shakir potentially being out the first couple weeks. He might actually get a boost also. And I know there's a lot of Dalton Kincaid lovers that are out there that have been hurting the last couple of seasons because he just hasn't lived up to the expectations. He might also be a buy low candidate. Next up, we've got the Miami Dolphins. And with the Dolphins, there's always the Tua concern. And so if you have Tua, it's probably not a bad idea to at least have the backup. And if you don't have Tua and you're trying to make a move in Superflex, getting the backups to the Miami Dolphins are probably worth your while. Zach Wilson, he's been kicked around the league. He was with the Broncos, I believe, last season, and now he's with the Miami Dolphins. He's probably the backup to Tua at this point, although they did draft late Quinn Ewers. I think between the two, if I had to choose between Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers, I think I'd go with Zach Wilson as he's got the higher draft capital. He was drafted, remember, in the first round by the Jets. Although it did fail, the Jets are a bad organization, and we've seen it just last year with Sam Darnold, where when you get released, you can flourish after you get kicked around the league a little bit more. So Zach Wilson would probably be the guy that I would want as a backup for the Miami Dolphins. Coming back down here, we got the running backs. Obviously, Devon Achane is the running back one that you want, but then there's a slew of running backs that you can kind of pick through here. You've got Ollie Gordon, the second, that Colton really likes. He's the guy that's different. He's the guy that's different than Achane, than Wright, than Madison. I'm not even sure that Alexander Madison makes this roster, but Ollie Gordon, he's that big bruising back. He's going to be an all-purpose back. He can run the ball and he can catch very well. He can be that goal line guy in order to keep Achane healthy. Remember Achane, he was running between the tackles. He was the guy that was really carrying the team for the Dolphins, and he's a slight guy. And so those in between the tackles, the grinding role is not Achane. And so now they've got a guy in Ollie Gordon, and I think that he may end up being the RB2 for this roster over Jalen Wright, although early on into training camp, there's been some buzz on Jalen Wright. He didn't quite get taken off. So those three guys I would hold on to. If you've got Alexander Madison, I think you are fine with cutting him And I doubt that anyone has Alec Ingold, the fullback. He'd also be cuttable. At the wide receiver position, they usually only throw to the top 2 wide receivers, being Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If you've got some concerns about Tyreek Hill and his health, they have started to say that he's looking fairly decent, but it sounds like he's not going for those go routes this year. He may be taking some more of the underneaths. And so in PPR, he might be a little more valuable in the receptions department, but less with those explosive down the field, go and get it type of balls that we were so used to seeing by Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle's having a great camp. It sounds like he's finally healthy. Last year was a really down year for him. There's been a lot of people that have been down on him. I took last year as a time to go out and buy Jalen Waddle. Now I'm just kind of holding, and we'll see if he can bounce back. At some point, people keep thinking that he might end up being the wide receiver 1 with Tyreek Hill's aging career. Malik Washington has shown flashes. Nick Westbrook-Akine, he was a touchdown monster with the Titans last year. In best ball, I'm still holding on to Nick Westbrook-Akine with that touchdown upside. And let's not forget that the Miami Dolphins did just move Jonnu Smith to the Steelers, who was that guy last year. They did pick up Darren Waller at the tight end position, but he is still not quite in football shape. He doesn't have an injury designation right now, but he's not really practicing with the team right now. And so if you're taking the tight end away, maybe, just maybe, that leads to more receptions for that wide receiver 3, with being Malik Washington or Nick Westbrook-Akine. If you're in a standard format where you have to do a lineup league, Malik Washington may still be a stash. I think he's an interesting player, to say the least. If you're in a lineup league, Nick Westbrook-Akine is definitely droppable. But in best ball, I think Nick Westbrook-Akine is still an option to hold on to. If you have to make a tough decision, he's probably a guy that you can drop and you won't lose any sleep over, as he just mainly has that touchdown upside. He's not going to be a PPR monster. Oh, what could have been for Eskridge. Remember, he was drafted very early by the Seahawks. He's on this roster. Eric Ezukanama. He had some buzz last year. I don't think he really played all that much. And basically the rest of this gang and the wide receivers are guys that you probably don't want to even hold on to. I'm looking at the practice squad here. They do have an Isaiah McKenzie. Remember, he showed some flashes with the Buffalo Bills. But if you're still holding on to Isaiah McKenzie, you can drop him. At the tight end position, I think an interesting stash would actually be Jalen Congers. So if you did go out and you missed picking up Darren Waller and you're tight end needy in a tight end premium league, don't hesitate to just go out and pick up Jalen Congers. He is a really athletic tight end, and he was an undrafted tight end, and Miami got a steal with him. I think he is a guy that you want to hold on to because, if Darren Waller decides that maybe football just isn't for him this year, Jalen Congers steps right in, and maybe he's that guy that can fill the Jonnu Smith role. With the New England Patriots, at the quarterback position, you got Drake May, you got Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs, I still think, is an interesting quarterback, and I'm not just saying this as a Minnesota Vikings fan. Josh Dobbs, he has stepped in, and he's athletic when he has the opportunity and he is playing. He does have some legs underneath him. So in Superflex leagues, I think he is a good handcuff quarterback to hold on to. With the running backs, you've got Travion Henderson and Stevenson. My understanding is Stevenson is actually getting quite a bit of buzz in camp and is looking pretty decent. And so I think these guys are really going to be splitting the load as a whole. Antonio Gibson, he looked like he took a back step last year. I've seen him dropped in a few leagues. I still am an Antonio Gibson believer, and I'm hoping that he can get some opportunities. And I think the New England Patriots actually need to hold on to Antonio Gibson unless they can get a decent trade-off. I think Antonio Gibson is kind of in a lock-in with the New England Patriots. Jermichael Hasty, he's shown some flashes with the 49ers, with the Patriots, and he is definitely droppable at this time. Antonio Gibson, please, I would still hold on to him. I would still hold on to Gibson. I'm a believer. And then we get to the New England wide receiver bunch. Stephon Diggs continues to show a lot of talent in training camp. He has not been put on the PUP list. He's healthy. He's doing his routes. He's doing his thing. And he's teaching a lot of these young guys how to play football. Stephon Diggs is looking like the wide receiver one for the Patriots. Kyle Williams is their rookie prospect wide receiver. You're definitely holding on to him. And then a forgotten men. There's two guys here. You got Demario Douglas and you've got Kayshon Boutte. And between those two, I'd probably still hold on to Pop Douglas, but I think it's mainly because of his name more so than his actually playing style. I think if he didn't have the nickname Pop, we probably wouldn't be talking about him all that much. Kayshon Boutte, he was a guy who was very prolific in college. He has a lot of talent, but he's still trying to figure it out in the league. With the remainder of the wide receiver core, these are all droppable. Well, there's a few droppable guys here. The two rookies from last year, you got Polk. I don't know if he's going to make the team, and Javon Baker. It doesn't sound like he may make the team either. They're both getting beat out currently by a guy that's been undrafted, an Efton Chisholm. And so this team's gonna hold on to 6 wide receivers in Diggs, Kyle Williams, Douglas, Boutte, probably Hollins, and probably Bourne, as Bourne has been with this coaching staff on and off for a number of years. And so, do they hold on to a guy like Efton Chisholm? He's a speculative stash. But the rest of these guys, I'm not really interested. Even in Kendrick Bourne, I'm not interested. You can drop them. Hollins probably dropping, Pope dropping, Baker dropping. Boutte probably, he's never been a guy that I've actually owned. But if I'm making a tough decision, I would be fine, and I'd sleep fine at night with dropping Kayshon Boutte. At the tight end position, got Hunter Henry. He is a guy that just gets there every year. He's a tight end, a back end tight end one each season. Hunter Henry's a guy you want to definitely hold on to. Austin Hooper, if he was on another team, he may have more opportunities. But now that they're starting to fill in the wide receiver role, he's a guy I would be fine also cutting. With the Jets, remember, it was only a couple weeks ago that Justin Fields, he had that really scary non-contact that ended up being a contact injury where a lineman ended up stepping on his foot. He dislocated his toe, but he's been back at practice, I think, since the next day. So it doesn't sound like Justin Fields is being controlled by the injury. So Fields is going to be that guy, although I've also heard that Tyrod Taylor has been outplaying him. And Justin Fields, he's getting paid with the Jets, but we've seen Justin Fields also fail a number of times. And so if you're in a Superflex league and you need a backup quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, he may be one of those guys that you can either stash for later in the season or keep an eye on in the waiver wire, because the upside with Tyrod Taylor just isn't quite there, especially on this New York Jets team. So he's not a guy that you have to hold on to. And I really like Adrian Martinez as a quarterback that I've been keeping my eye on also, because just 2 years ago, he led the league with the UFL in passing yards. And interesting fact, he also was 3rd overall in rushing in the UFL just 2 years ago. And so young talent, again, on the wrong franchise, but a guy that if Fields was to go down while everyone else is running out to get Tyrod Taylor, I would be going out and getting Adrian Martinez. So just a name to know. The running backs, they have a slew of running backs. They got, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis even showed some flashes last year. Kene Nwangu, Minnesota Vikings player that is mainly special teams, definitely cuttable. Donovan Edwards, I think I want to say he went to Michigan in college, and he's more of a grinder overall. Yeah, he was a Michigan running back. He was undrafted just this past year. I think he's just mainly a depth piece, but there's been so much rumors about them moving on from Brees Hall, and that Braylon Allen's actually looking better in camp than Brees Hall, which is a little scary for Brees Hall overall. But let's face it, if Brees Hall gets that go ahead and actually is traded sometime in the middle of the season, then basically this team is not gonna be hurting at the running back position. So Braylon Allen is definitely a guy you want to hold on to, and maybe a guy that you want to just go out and see if you can buy, as he is starting to have an upswing. Isaiah Davis, he's the forgotten man. If he's on waiver wire, he's a guy I'd be fine stashing. And Donovan Edwards, I really don't want any part in. And again, what's nice with Player Profiler, you can see like Brees Hall all-purpose, Braylon Allen all-purpose, Isaiah Davis all-purpose, and then you go down to Donovan Edwards, and he's a grinder. And so on really poor ran franchises and poor offensive lines, I really don't want the grinder back. I want the guy that's going to be catching the passes in the backfield, because Justin Fields is probably going to be running for his life. He's going to want to dump it down. And those pass catching backs are Hall, Allen, and Davis. And so Donovan Edwards, he's a guy that I would leave on the waiver wire. I am seeing him picked up off of waivers. If you can put in cheap bids, I guess you can take them. But I like better upside players more so than Donovan Edwards. The wide receivers with the Jets, you got Garrett Wilson and nobody else. The rumor has it that Josh Reynolds is actually the wide receiver 2. We saw Justin Fields with the Bears. He was able to lift up a wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore just 2 seasons ago, which leaves Garrett Wilson is probably going to be a guy that is maybe may have the highest target percentage of any wide receiver in the NFL, as he doesn't have a lot of target competition. And I think that Fields is just going to just lock in on his number 1 wide receiver, as we've seen him do with the Bears. And Lazard, he's just a guy. He's getting overpaid by the Jets. I think it's like $13 million for this season, and he may not make the team. Josh Reynolds, he's outplaying all the number 2s that are on the team. I like Tyler Johnson when he was with the Buccaneers. He was a 5th round guy out of Minnesota, and he has a lot of athleticism. He's shown some flashes on and off during his career, but he's not a guy that you're going to feel comfortable starting if he does get the opportunity. So if you're not going to feel comfortable starting Allen Lazard, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, why are you holding on to him in fantasy football? These are all guys that you do not need or really want on your rosters. Josh Reynolds, he's that speculative guy that you can hold on to in a pinch, but I know I personally wouldn't feel comfortable playing him if I'm outside of best ball. Arian Smith, he was a Georgia wide receiver. Says he's a slot, but really he just seemed like when he was with Georgia, he was just a guy that just kind of flew down the field. And he was that guy that just, he's got that 4.36 speed, but a very low speed score because he's a very slight framed fella. He is 6 foot, 179 pounds. But again, you can kind of look at the age here. He's 23.8. His dominator rating is only at 18%, which is in the 20th percentile. Like, this isn't a guy that I want on my roster. Like, what are we doing here? Do I want the guy that's going to be just doing wind sprints? Because that's where Arian Smith is definitely doing. Malachi Corley, he was drafted just last year in the 3rd round. Again, he's a bigger wide receiver. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. He has a really pretty decent dominator rating with 31.9% from Western Kentucky, smaller college. And, it takes time for these smaller college players to actually break out. But athleticism doesn't matter as much at the wide receiver position. His best comparable player is Curtis Samuel. And so I find that a little bit interesting. A breakout age is average. College target share is just above average. And so Malachi Corley, I think of the rest of the bunch outside of Garrett Wilson, he's a guy I'd be fine stashing. Xavier Gibson, he's just that specialty player. He's that Swiss Army knife. He's very quick, but he's a bit fragile. Each time they're starting to give him a little bit more of a load, he tends to get injured or hurt. Tight ends, I think the only guy that you really want to hold on to is Mason Taylor. He's just drafted this year. Stone Smart, he showed some flashes last year with the Chargers, and Rucker, you don't really want any part of. At one time, I liked Zach Kuntz because of his athleticism overall, and that's really what you want to look for in the tight end position. But the Jets, it's a really small group of guys that you want. You just want some of those running backs, Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor. With Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, obviously, I think he's going to be the quarterback one for the whole season. He's got that rushing upside. He's got a lot of weapons. He's got a lot of outs to be that quarterback one. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up being the MVP this year. Cooper Rush, he showed that he was a fine backup with the Cowboys, although this is a completely different system. And he's a completely different player than Lamar Jackson, which makes him really interesting on why Baltimore decided to pick him up. Perhaps they're just picked up Cooper Rush because they know that he can manage the game well. And again, they got plenty of weapons that include Derrick Henry, and so just give the ball to Derrick Henry a million times, and this Baltimore team is going to be just fine because the defense is fantastic. So, but in Superflex, though, I'm fine dropping Cooper Rush. I don't think he has all that much upside here with the Baltimore franchise. Lamar Jackson, there was a lot of injury speculation with him early on in his career, but he's shown that he can be really healthy the last couple of years. And I don't know. I wouldn't lose sleep over dropping Cooper Rush. Derrick Henry, he's the guy, and I don't know if I really want too much of the rest of the backfield, to be honest. Justice Hill has been hanging around. Keaton Mitchell, he was injured most of last season, but when he came back, it's shown that they wanted to give him the ball. So he's probably a guy that you want to just hold on and stash. In a lineup league, though, I'm not really interested in playing Keaton Mitchell. And putting him in the lineup. I like him a better and best ball type of guy. Dearness Johnson, he's just a guy, drop. Rasheen Ali, drop. And Justice Hill, I would drop. So Keaton Mitchell, he's probably the speculative hold. Derrick Henry's the dude. Wide receivers, Zay Flowers, Bateman, those are the two guys that you want to hold on to with the wide receiver position with the Ravens. Hopkins has been added on, but we saw him take a back step last year with Kansas City Chiefs. He looks like he's going to be just a guy that is more of a depth option. There's been some buzz on Devontae Walker lately of him showing some flashes in camp, but Walker's not a guy I want to hold on to. I would see if I could flip Hopkins. Maybe there's somebody in the league that still likes the name cachet. If you get a third for Hopkins, I think you might be winning that trade. If you're in a best ball league, you can hold on to him and see what happens. Maybe he has a couple of upside games. Anthony Miller actually popped up within the last week or two as he was also making plays in training camp. I thought that was interesting. But if you have any of these guys outside of like Flowers and Bateman, they're probably worth dropping. Hopkins, again, I would try and flip him if I have him. Walker, drop. Scotty Washington, drop. Anthony Miller, he's probably on the waivers for the last couple of years. Wester, he's a rookie, drop. Tylan Wallace, drop. Malik Cunningham, he was the converted quarterback into wide receiver. He's a guy I've just been kind of watching over the last few years, and I continue to watch him on the waiver wire. Mark Andrews, he is the tight end one for this team. Isaiah Likely, there's a lot of people that really like him, but he just recently had an injury, and he's going to be out for 6 weeks after suffering a fracture in his foot. He did require surgery, and it takes time to come back after surgery. And not only time, but it's also going to take him time to recondition. And so what that means is there's an uptick in Mark Andrews. And so wherever you had Mark Andrews, at the tight end position, you probably need to start moving him up the rankings a bit. With the Cincinnati Bengals, you've got Joe Burrow, or Joe Shiesty, as Colton likes to call him. I still like the backup, Jake Browning. He's been on and off of my leagues a number of times. He's a guy that if Burrow goes down, Jake Browning, he has stepped in. He's been more than an adequate backup quarterback, and he's provided some fantasy points. And he'd be a guy I'd feel comfortable playing if Joe ever did go down. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to have to take a Joe Burrow injury for Jake Browning to get an opportunity on this team. But he's a speculative stash if you're looking for a guy. But there's so many speculative stashes at the quarterback position. You can drop one and pick up another one. So if you want more upside, you're probably stashing more of a running back, a wide receiver, or maybe you like one of those backup tight ends if you're in a tight end needy team. So Jake Browning, you have my permission. You can drop him at this time. Running back, you got Chase Brown. They just dropped Moss because of he had an injury just this past year, which is why Chase Brown ended up getting the bulk of the carries. That's why they brought in Samaje Perine, just a guy running back. So there's been a lot more buzz about Chase Brown with getting more opportunities because Moss is out. I was not expecting Moss to even be on this team to begin with because of his injury. So I don't understand why people are just getting on Chase Brown right now. I really like at the backup position, not so much Samaje Perine. I like Taj Brooks. I haven't had any opportunities to really pick him up in any of my waiver claims. I just got outbid this past weekend. I was a bit disappointed to see him get picked off in my league, but I definitely didn't want to use up all my fab on a guy that was like my 23rd or 24th rated running back going into this NFL draft. But you definitely want to hold on to Taj Brooks. I think he's going to have some opportunities, and they're not going to want to give Chase Brown all the carries like they did last year. They don't want to wear him out. So Taj Brooks and Brown are the only running backs that you really want on this team. Samaje Perine, you can leave him to the waivers. Chase, Higgins, what can I say? Those are two guys you definitely are holding on to. Andrew Yoshivas, he is probably the wide receiver 3. Again, he's a guy that I don't feel comfortable playing in my lineup leagues. And if Higgins goes down, I'm still not really feeling all that comfortable playing Yoshivas. Jermaine Burton is starting to show some flashes in camp. He was a guy that I was really on last year, getting him in like the 4th round off of waivers. And I got to be honest, I don't have him on any of my franchises right now. I've dropped him everywhere. So outside of Chase and Higgins, I really don't want any part of the wide receivers here. That includes you, Charlie Football, Charlie Jones. And then at the tight end position, they did recently have an injury with Mike Gesicki. So Noah Fant may have some opportunities with this team. Noah Fant was just picked up by the Bengals, and Gesicki, he basically tweaked his hamstring. And we know this time of year, if you start getting a hammy, it could leak into the season, and it could be a frequently returning injury. And so if you've got Mike Gesicki, you've got some concerns. I really like Noah Fant when he was dropped by the Seahawks. That could have been your open door to pick him up. Now that he's with the Bengals, and now that Gesicki's injured, I think you're going to have a harder time prying Noah Fant from the other teams. And then just to have another speculative stash, and you can carry him on your IR. I do like Eric All. He is going to be out for the entire season. And so if you're expecting any fantasy points, you will not have any from that player. With the Cleveland Browns, who is going to be the quarterback 1 for this team? And it is not going to be Deshaun Watson. I have actually seen Watson dropped in a couple of my Dynasty Superflex leagues. Deshaun Watson is probably not going to play another snap for the Browns. Will he play another snap in the NFL? I'm not sure. Oh, man. I guess if you want to carry him on your IR, he's a free hold, but he's probably not a guy I'm very interested in. I would be fine dropping him as well. I have not gone out to pick him up off of the waivers. If you're a really quarterback needy team, if you're in a rebuilding type of team, Deshaun Watson could be a guy that you can stash onto. Again, if you can carry him on your IR and not have to worry about him being on your active roster, he would be just fine, in hopes that he gets healthy and actually starts to show some flashes, and maybe you'll get a chump to basically trade Deshaun Watson and get a pick for him. But I don't know. What is that going to be? A third or a second? I think that at most you might get a second in the future if he starts to show some talent, but he hasn't shown talent in a long time, and I think a lot of people have lost complete hope over him. So to the waivers he goes. Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl winning Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Sanders. All four of these guys should be stashed and held on your rosters at this time, as they're still trying to figure out who the quarterback one for the Browns is going to be. And it's probably going to be something that's going to happen all year round. I do have Kenny Pickett in one of my leagues in Superflex, and I think he is on the chopping block. He's probably a guy that I'm going to be struggling to make some moves on, and I don't know if I want to be dealing with the Browns carousel all season long. And, what if Kenny Pickett, he shows some flashes early on, becomes quarterback one, and then all of a sudden he has one down quarter, and then they pull him, and then they put in somebody else. I don't want to mess with that. And so let another team mess with it. Let another team pick up Pickett. You know what? At this point, you could probably drop Joe Flacco, drop Kenny Pickett, let another franchise spend some waiver money on them, have them be the roster clogs for that other franchise, and then it can completely clear up your roster. So that's what we're going to do. Drop Joe Flacco, drop Kenny Pickett, hold on to Dylan Gabriel, hold on to Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson, he is also a drop. Judkins, he still has not signed his rookie contract yet. They're still figuring out things in regards to his criminal acts. Jerome Ford is supposedly the guy that's going to be the starting running back at the beginning of the season. Dylan Sampson, I had an opportunity to draft Dylan Sampson at the 312 spot. And you know what? Maybe I made a mistake, but Dylan Sampson, he just reminds me of Kenny Gainwell. And Kenny Gainwell has shown flashes in the NFL, but he's also been a guy that I haven't been that confident in starting. And I do like Jerome Ford, and I think Jerome Ford has a lot of talent. So I don't know. I think I'd rather take a more upside swing, and I did. And I took DJ Giddens, and he's a guy that I liked pre-draft and post-draft in his landing spot. So you know what? Call me dumb, but I did not go with the trap that is Dylan Sampson. But Judkins, I think they're going to get things sorted out. These stars, they tend to figure things out, and he's going to have an opportunity. But this does have a lot of Geis kind of feel to it. And so if you can get out with Judkins, maybe this is the time to move him. You either got to move or hold. If you're worried about the criminal acts, if you're worried about the whole non-contract type of thing, the Browns aren't going anywhere, so they're probably just going to keep him healthy. So Judkins, he's an interesting guy. That's definitely interesting in fantasy football. But right now, I think you hold. Judy Tillman, Deontay Johnson. I had in the Hot Takes episode that I had Deontay Johnson actually being the wide receiver one for the Browns. So do not drop. I repeat, do not drop Deontay Johnson. And if he's on the waivers, go ahead, pick up Deontay Johnson, put him on your roster, and you can thank me later. I think he still shows a lot of talent. He was just with the poor franchise, the Panthers. Really? And the Ravens. Like, what are we doing here? Well, the Browns are also a poor franchise, so I can't take that too much as a bad take. The Ravens are a good team, but they had a lot of talent. And so, the Panthers were the bad team, not the Ravens, of course. The Ravens are a great team, but they've got a lot of wide receivers, and they run the ball quite a bit, and they got a good defense, so they're not down by very much points, so they don't have to use them at all. But Deontay Johnson found a new home with the Browns. They are a team that's going to be coming from behind, and there's going to be a lot of targets to go around. That leaves Judy, Tillman, and Johnson as the wide receivers that I want to hold on to. Thrash, drop, DeAndre Carter, drop. And if you still are holding on to shares of David Bell, you could have dropped him sometime back. Tight end position, there's only two that you want to know, and that's Njoku, who has been a fantastic tight end these last couple of years, and Harold Fannin Jr. He's also getting some buzz. He is going to be a dude to have, and I hope as the season goes on that he starts to really get a lot of targets. And if he does, that's going to take away from the wide receiver 3. And so hopefully it starts to shake out. Problem is once there's a quarterback carousel, you don't know which week. Is it going to be Judy? Is it going to be Tillman? Is it going to be Deontay Johnson that they're going to connect with? With the Steelers, they recently acquired John U. Smith. They recently acquired Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is now the quarterback 1 for the Steelers. Mason Rudolph, he's disappointed because he was said that he was going to be the quarterback 1 for the team. He is going to be a backup for the remainder of his career. Aaron Rodgers is a guy that you definitely want to hold on to for right now. If you can trade him, go for it. But I haven't seen any good deals with Aaron Rodgers shares that I have been offered. Mason Rudolph is droppable. Will Howard, I'm seeing him getting drafted in middle of the 4th round in Dynasty. He is a speculative ad. I just go back to my story about the NFL Combine. We got the Michigan fans that were rooting Will Howard on when he was missing the targets. And then you had the Ohio State fans that were rooting him on when he was actually making completions. And then towards the end of the NFL Combine, Reggie Wayne was asked, who was the best quarterback play that he's seen. And he's like, well, I'm going to go with the crowd. I'm going to go with Will Howard. And, he completely missed the boat. But who didn't miss the boat? The NFL, because Will Howard was drafted on late day 3 by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it probably will end up being a great pick for the Steelers overall, as he's going to learn behind one of the NFL greats in Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to learn from Mason Rudolph, who has shown some talent in the NFL. And he's not going to be a guy that's just going to be thrust in. He's going to need to develop a little bit more to get his accuracy up. And so the only thing with Will Howard is I don't know what's the long-term approach with him. Like, what's your plan with Will Howard? Are you just hoping that Aaron Rodgers fails so bad that Will Howard starts to go in? Because we saw him fail last year and we didn't see any other quarterback go in with the New York Jets. And so if Will Howard isn't going to have the opportunity late in the season, what's the plan with stashing Will Howard? So Will Howard is not a guy that I'm stashing on any of my leagues, including Superflex. I just never really understood the why behind it, because Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be a guy that when he's in the room outside of injury, and he doesn't get injured very often outside of the Achilles, just a couple of years ago, Aaron Rodgers is the guy. There's no one else. No questions asked. And so, Will Howard, what's the point? Running backs, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, and those are going to be the 2 backs that you want. I've always liked Evan Hall. He's a guy I'm just monitoring on the waivers. And we've already talked about Kenneth Gainwell, a guy that he's shown flashes in the league. The Eagles really liked him quite a bit. And what's interesting is he stays in Pennsylvania here with the Steelers. And it sounds like Caleb Johnson is having some trouble with pass pro. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to get put on his back. And so I think that Jalen Warren's going to have more opportunities than Caleb Johnson early on in the season. And maybe Kenneth Gainwell gets sprinkled in there as well. But what does that mean? Is that like just 20% of the load? He's a speculative stash. Again, he's got that all-purpose logo underneath his name, so he's a guy that I'm probably going to have some interest in. If you have him, he's a roster clogger. Kenneth Gainwell is a roster clogger. When you don't have him, you want him, and when you have him, you don't want him. So he's a tough one. I don't think you can get anything for Kenneth Gainwell right now, and so that means that he might be a guy that you have to make a tough decision on. And I think my decision would be I think he's droppable, and just monitor him from afar. And here's the thing. If he goes onto another roster, then he becomes their roster clogger and not your problem. Wide receivers for the Steelers, there's only 2 that I really want, and that's going to be DK Metcalf, and that's going to be Roman Wilson. Calvin Austin, he's shown some flashes. He's kind of that sprint down the field type of guy. he may become valuable, but he's just not a guy that I tend to target all that much. I really liked Roman Wilson coming out of the NFL draft last year. He was injured, and this year he's healthy. But we've all know that Aaron Rodgers doesn't really like young wide receivers, and so he's a little scary to hold on to, and that's Roman Wilson that we're talking about. Robert Woods is an older wide receiver, and in my heart, I feel like Robert Woods and DK Metcalf are probably the wide receivers that you want. But I've also seen Robert Woods getting tossed into the abyss, into the waivers. And so if I had Robert Woods, I wouldn't hesitate to drop him either. But if I'm a wide receiver needy team, I wouldn't hesitate to pick Robert Woods up either. And he's a guy that he played really well when he was with the Rams, but the last few years he hasn't done a whole lot. Scotty Miller, drop. Ben Skoranek, drop. And I don't think you have any more of these guys. So I'd hold on to Metcalf. I'd hold on to Wilson. I'd probably drop Calvin Austin. I'd probably add/drop Robert Woods, depending on what my team's needs are. Brings us to the Houston Texans. There is concern with Joe Mixon and his health. Joe Mixon's missing extended time because a foot injury. Nick Chubb is the guy that they brought in off of the waivers. And Woody Marks is the rookie that they brought in, a very talented running back who had the most receptions over the last 2 seasons. I personally like Woody Marks out of all these running backs. That's including Mixon. I like Woody Marks a lot. And Woody was also a guy that you could get off of waivers in a lot of cases. And unfortunately for me in the Wizarding world, after the rookie draft, I was not able to get him. There was somebody that put in a pretty big bid on him. And so a guy that I'm okay with missing out on, but if you have him, you're excited. You're excited. You're excited for the talent that is Woody Marks. He's a guy that can run and catch the ball, and I think that he might be the running back that's maybe the most valuable on this roster right now, especially with Joe Mixon continuing to be injured. He was in a boot within the last month, so Joe Mixon's pretty scary. I'm not feeling it for Mr. Joe Mixon this year, and he's going into, I think, his age 30 season. Yeah, he's 29 right now, but these injuries continue to pile up for Joe. Dameon Pierce, I think he is a guy that could be dropped after training camp. He was a guy that shown flashes his rookie season, and then he just, he's been outproduced by Joe Mixon the last couple of years. Dameon Pierce would be a guy that I would hope latches on to a good franchise like the Minnesota Vikings and becomes an RB3 for a team. If you've got Derek Gumbawale, drop. J.J. Taylor, drop. Jawar Jordan, I've seen some people still in some of my leagues that have him, drop. Wide receivers, Nico Collins, Higgins, Kirk, Knoll. Those are the 4 guys that you want to know and have. While Joe Mechie, you can drop. Xavier Hutchinson, drop. Justin Watson, I really like, but does he even make this team? Drop. Tank Dell. I mean, I've heard of some people actually on other podcasts that are actually just dropping Tank Dell. I think if you have Tank Dell, you hope that, you can either keep him and stash him on the IR spot, or you can trade him for pennies just to see if he can open up a spot for you. But if you're selling him, you're selling him on the low. If you're dropping him, you believe that he's pretty much done for his career, which is possible. But I think he still shows some value. He's still on a decent organization and franchise, and things change. And so although for this year in 2025, he's not going to give you any fantasy points at all, but maybe next year he can show some bounce back. Tank Dell is speculative. The tight ends, Dalton Schultz is you know what? Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, Cade Stover. They've got a guy they drafted, a Luke Lackey, an Iowa tight end, and Irv Smith. He's still hanging around the corpse that is Irv Smith. Tight ends, I'm not a Dalton Schultz guy. I really am not. I don't think I've ever owned him. He's just a guy. He kind of peters around. I like Cade Stover. Kate Stover has a good story, good history. If I had to hold on to the tight ends here, I'd hold on to Cade Stover, and if I had Schultz, I guess I'd hold on to him. Brevin Jordan, droppable. Luke Lackey, he's not a guy I want to hold on to. He's more of a classic blocking tight end. And Irv Smith, he's been off my roster for a long time. Ooh, the Colts. You know what we need here. We need some Indiana Jones. That's right. Indiana Jones is having a quarterback competition with now Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is back, just like Voldemort was back. Anthony Richardson, he has the athleticism. That isn't the problem. It's the between the ears. And it sounds like Anthony Richardson is actually the quarterback that's been showing some more talent in the backfield, more so than Indiana Jones himself. So there is a true quarterback competition that's being played out here. These two quarterbacks need to be rostered in all dynasty formats, as they both have rushing upside. I even like them in one quarterback leagues. Just hold on to them and see what happens. Riley Leonard, he's not a guy that I'm holding on to. I think he was just excited to get on a franchise. He does have legs. He can run, but he's not the type of quarterback that I'm interested in, especially with the other two more seasoned quarterbacks ahead of him. The running backs, the only two that I'm really interested in is Jonathan Taylor and DJ Giddens. Yesterday, there was a significant injury for Salvin Ahmed, and he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. Khalil Herbert, this probably locks in a running back 2 or running back 3 role for the Colts. And so he's a guy you probably still have to hold on to. And if Tyler Goodson ends up like playing better, maybe they move on from Khalil Herbert, or maybe Khalil Herbert is a guy that can trade, as DJ Giddens is a very capable backup. But Khalil Herbert, he needs to be owned. Tyler Goodson, on the other hand, he is droppable. And now Salvin Ahmed is also a guy you can drop. Michael Pittman, Downs, Pierce, and Adonai Mitchell are the wide receivers that you probably need to hold on to for the Colts. You can drop Ashton Doolin. You can drop Anthony Gold. Laquan Treadwell. Wow. I didn't realize he was there, but drop. And tight end Tyler Warren. He is finally the tight end that the Colts have been looking for the last few years. He's the tight end that is going to be leading the way. Morale Cox, you can drop. Ogletree, you can drop. Jelani Woods is going to really hurt Colton Stoll, but Jelani Woods is now droppable. Albert O is on this team. You can drop. And Will Mallory, you can drop. The Jaguars. The Jaguars, I think, are an interesting team to watch this year, as everyone's really interested to see what happens with Travis Hunter. You got Trevor Lawrence. Will he take that step forward? It's been long enough. He was supposed to be the golden boy, and he just hasn't put it together quite yet. Now he's finally got the most talented team around him that he's had since being in the league, and he may, arguably have the best coach that he's had as a player. So Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are on the upswing. Nick Mullins has shown flashes when he was with the 49ers. He showed flashes with the Minnesota Vikings. We saw Trevor Lawrence go out last year and be injured, and Mac Jones stepping in. And so Nick Mullins, again, he's one of many guys that you can have as a speculative stash on your Superflex teams. I have made the decision to drop him in the leagues that I've had him. I'm looking for guys that are going to give me points, that are going to maybe grow in value a little bit quicker outside of injury. And Nick Mullins was not a guy that I was planning on holding on to. But if you're in quarterback hell and you need somebody to just fill a roster spot, you could do worse. Running backs. Now, like I'm saying, would you rather have Nick Mullins or any of these back-end running backs that they have here for the Jaguars? You got Travis Etienne, who's really picking up some steam here in camp. Like, you talk about a guy that's picking up steam. Tank Bigsby is somehow picking up steam, and he's not that good of a running back. I prefer Tootin. I prefer LaQuint Allen. In fact, I've got LaQuint Allen in a number of my fantasy leagues, and I feel like LaQuint Allen is actually going to end up being the RB2 for the Jaguars. Spoiler alert for those that are out there that are really liking Tootin and Bigsby, but Bigsby's just a guy, and Tootin, he's having a hard time with pass pro, and it sounds like he's having some hamstring problems. You know, these speedy running backs, speedy wide receivers, they get those hamstrings early in camp. Boy, it's really hard to bounce back. And especially when it's your rookie campaign, trying to bounce back from injuries. We've seen it over and over and over again that these guys just have a hard time, you know, getting in and getting the opportunities and getting the NFL to come back down to their own speed. So here enters LaQuint Allen. And not only that, but he's got a lot of outs. You know, they got outs if they end up moving Tank Bigsby. They got outs if they move Travis Etienne. He's got outs if there's injury with any of those guys ahead. But guess what? Tootin's already injured with his hamstring. And, oh, by the way, they've got one wide receiver in Brian Thomas. They've got a half wide receiver in Travis Hunter. And then what? They've already talked about moving LaQuint Allen around the field, not only as a running back, but also as a wide receiver. He's an excellent receiver. So LaQuint Allen, he is a guy you should not be sleeping on. So if he's on your waivers, please go ahead and pick him up. If you're in any of my leagues, sorry, I got him. He is a guy that I want everywhere. LaQuint Allen. Don't forget the name. The wide receivers for the Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr. We all know who he is. Travis Hunter. He has had the most polarizing rookie season so far, and the season hasn't even started yet. And then finally, you got Dustin Brown, who is a very interesting wide receiver. And if you're looking at any other wide receivers that are going to play a full-time role, whether it's two wide receiver sets or three wide receiver sets, you can see here on Player Profiler, the three wide receiver sets, they ran 70.2% of the time. So Dustin Brown will be on the field, and he's going to have to be an option for Trevor Lawrence if this team wants to start picking things up, because guys like Parker Washington drop, Joshua Cephas drop, Trenton Irwin who was with the Bengals, just a guy, like, drop. Like, it's going to be Brian Thomas. It's going to be Dustin Brown. It's going to be half the time it's going to be Travis Hunter. So Dustin Brown's a guy you need to stash. And I think he's going to be a guy you're going to feel comfortable playing when the time comes, because after the first couple of weeks, I think you're going to start to see that he's going to at least get about 5 balls a game. And let's not forget Brenton Strange. My top 5 tight end is where I think that Brenton Strange is going to be. In the Hot Takes episode, I had Brenton Strange. That's right, Brenton Strange as a top 5 tight end. If we would have extrapolated his receptions out last year with him playing a full season and not including Ingram being there, he would have had like 106 receptions, and he would have been the tight end 7. So it's not that far off to think that he could be a top 5 tight end for this franchise. And again, half wide receiver, got a Dustin Brown that isn't a proven wide receiver in the NFL. He's a very adequate one as like a wide receiver 3, which is the role he's going to play. And Brian Thomas, he's going to be completely fed. But Brenton Strange, you know, you want to attack these tight ends that are going to be not only athletic. He was drafted in the 2nd round. I'd forgotten he was drafted that early. He comes from Penn State and Iowa. They're both like tight end U. So what are we doing here? 6'4", 253 pounds. He has that weight threshold that I'm looking for. Is he 250 pounds? Yes, he is. He's shown flashes last year. He's fairly athletic. Like, what are we waiting for? Brenton Strange, go get him anywhere you can. I'm still trying to buy him right now as we speak. Titans. The Titans are an underrated team, and Cam Ward is the guy at the quarterback position, and there's nobody else. Brandon Allen, he's a fine backup. Tim Boyle, he's been bounced around the league. I'm surprised he's still in the league. And Will Levis, he's like, I'm out. I have a shoulder surgery. I'm going to take care of myself. and he's going to be on the IR all season long. And then we'll see what the Titans end up doing. Are they going to be able to move him, or are they going to drop him next year? The running backs, I think, are also fairly interesting, with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears being very similar running backs. They're both smaller framed running backs. And so these guys are the guys that are going to be catching the passes out of the backfield when Cam Ward is going to need that outlet. So these two are guys you definitely want to have in PPR leagues. Mullings is a guy I keep going back and forth on. And the reason is, with Pollard and Spears definitely has an injury track. Pollard, we know that he can't take the full load since he was with the Cowboys because of injury concerns. Mullings is a capable running back. I don't think he was drafted. Oh, I'm sorry. He was drafted in the 6th round, but he's a lot bigger guy. He's 226 pounds. He's going to be more of a bruiser. It does say he's all purpose, but he's more of a bruising back. He doesn't have a lot of pass catching skills. And Julius Chestnut, he's a guy that I've been rooting for the last couple of years. I'm just happy that he's on this team, but he's been on off my roster. Julius Chestnut, he's not a guy that I'm owning, but Chestnut and Mullings are two guys that I'm keeping my ears open for. And Tyrion Davis-Price is somehow on this team also as a practice squad guy. Remember, he was drafted in the 3rd round for the 49ers. And again, I didn't even know he was on this team. But maybe he's a guy also to just kind of listen in on. If either Pollard or Spears goes down, then either Mullings, Chestnut, Tyrion Davis-Price, these are probably one of those guys. And I'd probably go to the cheapest option, because I wouldn't want to put a lot of fab on, because I'm not a Mullings guy. Chestnut, if I could get him really cheap, I'd probably go that way. And then the sneaky ad would be putting a 0 bid on Tyrion Davis-Price when the time comes. Wide receivers, mainly all you really want here is Ridley, Lockett, A.O. Manor. You can drop Van Jefferson, Cashmere. Oh, Georgie, I love my Cashmere. What's this red dot, Georgie? Kashmir Dyke, he's not a guy that I want. I saw him drafted in the Wizarding World. Again, I'm sorry, I keep giving some spoilers in there, but I won't say who to. But Kashmir is not a player, although drafted earlier than Elik Manor. I just had a lot more interest in A.O. Manor in the pre-draft process. I felt like he was more of a guy that I'd want. Kashmir is more of a special team player. He is not a guy that I want. James Prochet, no. Drop. Jaquan Jackson was a guy that was interesting last year, but they actually got a lot of wide receivers here for the Titans, which is kind of interesting because Cam Ward is bringing in a guy in Xavier Restrepo, and at the NFL Combine, those two were inseparable. Cam Ward didn't even throw at the Combine. Oh, false. He did. He was throwing passes to Xavier Restrepo, trying to get Restrepo warmed up because he completely loves this guy. And guess who goes undrafted? Xavier Restrepo. And where does he land? With the Titans. Restrepo is going to be a guy that's going to make this roster, and he's probably going to be a guy that Cam Ward continues to lock on. And so Ridley, Lockett, A.O. Manor, Restrepo are the 4 wide receivers that you want with the Titans. At the tight end position, Okonkwo is still interesting. Gunnar Helm, he just was so unathletic. He is not a guy that I want, and I would be fine even if you drafted him early in the pre-draft process, and you need a roster spot. I would drop Gunnar Helm. I would drop him. I'm not sure what you're doing. The Broncos. We're almost through the AFC. The Broncos. Bo Nix. RJ Harley and J.K. Dobbins. These guys are going to step foot on the football field, and they're going to make things happen. This team is taking another step forward this year. I had them as my Super Bowl winner this year, the Broncos, the Denver Broncos. If you've got Jaleel McLaughlin, I am fine dropping. If you got Audric Estime, drop. Tyler Beatty, drop. Wide receivers, they have a lot of wide receivers on this team, but Sutton is the only guy that I trust. You've got Marvin Mims. Got to hold him. Got to hold him. Vale, shown flashes last year. Got to hold him. Roster clogger, though. Both of them, Mims and Vale, roster cloggers. Troy Franklin, roster clogger. Pat Bryant, roster clogger. Like these guys are the guys that you're going to get yourself in trouble with on your teams, and they're going to make it really hard for you. I would not feel bad dropping Vale. I would not feel bad dropping Troy Franklin. I absolutely did not draft Pat Bryant. Maybe there's an Illinois fan or a Broncos fan that's more excited about Pat Bryant. You can maybe trade him because he's got that, still has that rookie shine on him. But the only guy that I want at the wide receiver position for the Broncos is Sutton. Drop everybody else, and that'd be fine. Mims, he'd be the one I'd hold on to. Evan Ingram, the tight end one that I had said in my Hot Takes episode. I think he's going to break the tight end receptions record that he nearly beat just only 2 years ago. Last year, injuries compounded his lack of play with the Jaguars, and now he finds himself on a team that's ascending, that made the playoffs last year, that's with a better quarterback in Bo Nix, and he's going to get things done. And guess what? We just talked about it. All the other wide receivers are guys outside of Sutton. You've got Sutton and who? Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram. Got to pick it up here a little bit. Kansas City Chiefs. You've got Mahomes, who Gardner Minshew, he's just got that class to him. But unfortunately, he's been just a guy at the quarterback position. He did take a backseat to the Raiders a couple times last year. He is probably a guy that you are sadly going to drop. Bailey Zappi, if you still have him, you can easily drop him. Gardner Minshew would be the one that'd be a little bit more heart-wrenching to drop. The running backs, they've got a slew of running backs right now. Pacheco, when he came back early from his ankle injury, he did not look very good. He had no explosiveness at all. Kareem Hunt, he's starting to take a step back in his playing style. Brashard Smith, he's the converted wide receiver to a running back that ran for over 1,000 yards and played very well in college last year. I think he's the most interesting of all of the running backs on this team. But you can go out and you can buy Isaiah Pacheco fairly inexpensive. So you might be able to find Kareem Hunt on the waiver wire. I know he's been a guy that I've spun my fingers around and thought about dropping a few times just to make some open space on my roster. Again, these are tough moves that we're talking about, guys. These are tough drops. Elijah Mitchell is a guy that I think he's a speculative ad. He's a guy, if I have him on my roster, he's probably clogging my roster. Carson Steele, though, unfortunately, he was the guy that I really liked last year. If you can go back to any of the podcasts, I talked about Carson Steele before he even made it to the Kansas City Chiefs. And now he's finding himself on a roster bubble. There's rumors saying that Carson Steele is not going to make the Kansas City Chiefs team when the 53-man roster is made up. So Carson Steele is droppable. If you're still holding on to Keontae Ingram, he's droppable as well. Wide receivers, they all of a sudden, now they have all these wide receivers. Where do they all come from? Worthy, we know Rice and his suspension stuff. Marquise Brown, he's injured already. Jalen Royals, he's an interesting rookie wide receiver. And then the rest are guys that kind of fill a depth need for Kansas City. This is a franchise that is doing it the right way. And now they're finding themselves with an extreme amount of riches when it comes to the running backs, the wide receivers, and depth. They still got Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he makes the team. But, again, if you have him, you can drop him. Sky Moore, I dropped him about 2 years ago. Traquan Thornton, he's been having some buzz. I've seen him get added in one of my 5 dynasty leagues just this past weekend. He is not a guy that my team wants at all. Again, he's a guy that does a lot of wind sprints. We saw him do that with the Patriots. He has a lot of speed, but that speed doesn't translate well to the wide receiver position, especially when you're only getting 1, 2, maybe 3 targets in a game. That's not the guy I want to shake things up on my roster. So I'm sorry, Thornton's not going to make my roster at all. Badger was never a guy that I was targeting. Justin Ross is still lingering around on the practice squad. Drop. Travis Kelce and Gray, I think these are both guys you got to hold on to. Jared Wiley, he's been on and off my rosters a few times. I don't think I have Jared Wiley anywhere anymore. He was the rookie tight end that was quite athletic. I still like him quite a bit, but I don't want him to completely clog my roster. And so he was a guy that I dropped. Jake bringing Stool out of, I think, Clemson. And he's not a tight end that I really liked at all. He was an undrafted guy. I've seen some people pick him up, especially in tight end premium leagues. If you're still worried about Kelce and his health, I suppose you could stash Jake Bringstool. But if I had to choose between Bringstool and Jared Wiley, I will take Jared Wiley any day. I think he is much more athletic overall. Again, he's got the draft capital behind him. He was drafted in the 4th round in 2024, as opposed to Bringstool was a undrafted player. He's got that height. He's got that weight. He's got the best comparable player to Logan Thomas. He's got a really good dominator rating at 21.8% out of TCU. And, enough said there about Jared Wiley. Again, a guy to know. He is a guy to know. And as we are getting later into this podcast, it's looking like we're going to basically just get through the AFC. We've got 2 more here, and then in another pod, we can go through the NFC. So we're going to go into the Raiders next. Raider Nation, they are starting to finally pick themselves up in a division that has been very competitive with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos. The Raiders are not in competition with this division, but they are going to be a thorn in the side for this division. Tom Brady is now a partial owner. They're starting to get some momentum behind them now that they are in Vegas. They've been solidified there for the last few years. Geno Smith is a quarterback that Pete Carroll is very familiar with, and they are going to show this league that they are not just going to be walked over. They're going to fight. And the main competitor on this team is going to be Ashton Genty and Bowers. And Ashton Genty, he was drafted, I think, was he 6th overall in this NFL draft? And yeah, 6th overall. And he's got that 4.47 wheels, 105.7, 83rd percentile speed score, dominator rating in the 96th percentile. Like, whoo! Genty, if you were lucky to get him. And then in redraft, again, I've seen some people wanting him in like the top 4, top 5 players drafted in redraft. So Ashton Genty is definitely right there. Something that maybe a lot of fantasy guys don't get, guys and girls don't know, is that Raheem Mostert's actually the running back 2 for this team. There was a lot of people thinking it might be Sincere Cormick or Zamir White, although Zamir White is starting to get some buzz, and out of training camp, they are saying that Zamir White could be the running back too. So as far as guys to stash, Mostert and Zamir White still might have a little bit of a hold on them, while Sincere McCormick you can drop. Dylan Labe, I've had him in so many leagues last year. I ended up dropping him in every single one. I think I had him in almost every league, and I dropped him in all of them. So he had 1 fumble, and then he never came back. Different coaching staff. So I hope he does get another opportunity, and maybe I'll get another share later on. But as of right now, he is not on my roster. Jacoby Myers is the wide receiver to own. And then you have speculative ads in Jack Besh, Deontay Thornton. If you've got Trey Tucker, you can drop him. Kyle Phillips, if he's still lingering around on your roster somehow, drop. You got the quarterback converted into wide receiver, Tommy Mellett, drop. Oh, let's rewind just a moment, and we need to go back to Cam Miller. So remember, Cam Miller was the quarterback that our friend, tier 1 quarterback Zach, had said that we need to watch. He is a guy out of North Dakota State. He was drafted in the 6th round after Mallett. And it's interesting that they don't have all that much details here. If you look on the side, they don't have any of the QBRs, the yards per attempt, or the breakout age on Player Profiler. He has average height. He's got some weight behind him. But with North Dakota State, he did play pretty well just last year. And if you want more details, all I've got to go to is tier 1 quarterback on X, and you'll get all the details that you need in Cam Miller. So according to him, he is a stash. I do not have him in any of my leagues, but he definitely does. He's in 3 of my 5, and I think he is owned by quarterback Zach in every single one of them. So there's a shout out to our friends over there with the Fantasy Football Holics. Which brings me back down to now the tight end position, and Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. They're definitely stashes. Ian Thomas, when he was with the Panthers, he was a guy I really liked. But if he's on your roster, he is now a drop. And finally, our final team to go over is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers have just shown us in the Hall of Fame game that they have depth. They have a lot of depth on their team. They completely destroyed the Lions in the Hall of Fame game. That's not really an important game at all. But what was important is that Trey Lance actually showed that he could be a capable backup quarterback in the NFL. He looked like he had a lot of poise, hit a couple touchdowns, and he looked like he was reading the field a lot better. Granted, against backups and third strings, but you got to start somewhere. This guy just needs more opportunities to see the field, and we have a couple more preseason games to continue to observe and watch a lot of these younger, less experienced players. And Trey Lance is definitely a player that you can stash right now. I've seen him dropped in a number of leagues, and I got to say I've dropped him and picked him up a couple different times over the last 2 years. But as of right now, I think if he's not already picked up after the Hall of Fame game, like Trey Lance, especially quarterback needy teams, I think he's a guy, he's got a lot of draft capital, and he is competing with Taylor Heineke to be that quarterback too for what's going to be a very powerful Chargers team. I think Trey Lance is actually a hold at this time, or even a pickup, just to see what happens. Justin Herbert, he has not been a figure of health with his franchise, and he has had a few injuries that have lingered throughout seasons. He's a very tough quarterback, but having the backup for this team is not a bad idea. Speaking of backups, Najee Harris has returned back to training camp after having the firework injury to his eye. Najee Harris is back. He is going to be a thorn in the side for Amari and Hampton owners. Hampton is amazing. Remember, he was my rookie running back 1. He's an amazing running back prospect. But Najee Harris was also once drafted in the 1st round of the NFL, and he's going to have opportunities, and they're not going to want to completely utilize all of Hampton and just completely wear him out. They're going to want to offset some of those touches. And it's probably going to be more of like a 50-50 split. I think these two are going to have 50-50 splits. Vidal, he's doing everything he can to make the roster. I have him in one of my leagues. I'm going to either try and flip him, or he's also on the cut list. Haskins, if you have him, you can cut him. Naheem Hines, he hasn't played football in 2 years. You can cut him. Jarrett Patterson, cut. Raheem Sanders, rookie, cut. John Kelly, man, I like to see that John Kelly is still in the league. He was a guy I really liked with the Browns, just didn't get the opportunities. But nobody has John Kelly. But he's definitely a guy that I've been keeping an eye on for many, many, many years. And at the wide receiver positions, you got Ladd McConkey, you got Dre Harris, you got QJ, and a guy that really started to spring up in fantasy rankings is Keontae Lambert-Smith. I'm seeing him picked up just about everywhere now. He has shown very well in the Hall of Fame game. He's showing up in practice. He could compete there with Trey Harris and QJ and Ladd McConkey and kind of dirty this up a little bit more. And, maybe those Ladd McConkey shares aren't going to be as exquisite in redraft or on your dynasty rosters as they were last year when they didn't really have anybody other than QJ to compete with. So Ladd McConkey is going to now have more competition for receptions and touches. Ladd McConkey is a dude, and he's the guy. But I do have some concerns. I do have Ladd McConkey, and I do have some concerns about Trey Harris, QJ, and then also Lambert-Smith taking some of those reception and target opportunities out of his way. Darius Davis, cut. Jalen Reagor, cut. Brenton Rice, cut. Des Fitzpatrick, I have heard of him. I would cut him as well. And tight ends, there is a slew of tight ends. Will Dissly is the tight end one. Tyler Conklin, again, another capable tight end. And then there's a lot of excitement about Gadsden the second. He's a move tight end. We've talked about move tight ends here on the program many times. Again, he is under that 250-pound threshold. He's a tall guy, 6'5". He can catch the ball. That's not the problem. Drafted in the 5th round. He definitely has some upside at receptions. He 25.9%, 80th percentile college dominator rating. So, I mean, he can be a guy, but with all of these receiving weapons with the wide receivers, do you really want to move tight end? That's not going to be on the field all that often. That's going to be on the field 30, 40% of the time. I don't. They're going to want somebody that's going to be blocking more. You know who can block? Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin. They can block, and then they can step out and do a route afterwards. That's going to be the type of player that the Chargers are going to want, not Oronde Gadsden. Oronde Gadsden is a name that you have right now. If you can flip him. But if he's on your roster, you got to hold. Tyler Conklin, I think if he's on your roster, you got to hold. And Will Dissly, he's a guy you also got to hold, because you want players that are on good offenses that are going to be having to be in competitive divisions. And that's exactly what this division is. That pretty much takes us to the end of the AFC. This was a longer podcast. And to end things, I would like to end it with one of the quarterback 4 of the Minnesota Vikings. This ain't no Ed Sheeran country song. Let's end it with our Minnesota Vikings quarterback Max Brosmer's Old Jack Daniels song. Enjoy.
I got a poster of him hanging in my room, and that black label from here by noon. Oh, Tennessee whiskey, won't you take my pain away? I've been sitting behind bars for the past 2 weeks, and all I think about is that amber sweet. Oh, Jack Daniels, you make me complete. Oh, number 7, coming straight from the heavens. They're still in bottle in Lynchburg, Tennessee. I hope old Jack himself is proud. Don't want my head keep spinning around. Oh, Jack Daniels, look what you've done to me. They tell me it's against the law. Since I'm not 21, they shouldn't care at all. There ain't no piece of writing that got any shit on me. I got damn good proof that I'm of age. Check my ID, check the date. I'm 23, I was born in 98. It's real, I promise. Oh, number 7, coming straight from the heavens. Distilled and bottled in Lynchburg, Tennessee. I hope old Jack himself is proud. No wonder why I keep singing so loud. Old Jack Daniels, look what you've done to me. I guess what they're saying's having fun is wrong. Well, what's the point of living it all if you can't go out and make some damn good memories? Old Jack Daniels is the perfect friend and a damn good wingman. On weekends, he always makes the girls look like perfect 10. Ain't that true? Oh, number 7, coming straight from the heavens. Distilled and bottled in Lynchburg, Tennessee. I hope old Jack himself is proud. Let's allow him to take his final bow. Old Jack Daniels, look what you've done to me. Thank you, Jack, for what you've done for me.